if at all. First of all, you're taught very little about them. And to the extent you're taught about, you will get up. Bhagat Singh got up one morning, turned up in the Central Assembly and threw a bomb. Why did he do it? Or, suddenly out of thin air, Netaji turns up in Singapore and sets up the Indian National Army. That's totally not the case. So let me give you a little brief history, sort of overarching idea of how...
Tell us the networks and also the Indian segregated all across that map of India,
Yeah.
plus the international
Absolutely.
linkages.
India, after 1857, for a period, was under absolute shock. The British had absolutely decimated everybody. There was the odd, revolt by traditional India. You saw the Manipuri nobility rise up, or Birsa Munda and the tribals of Jharkhand rise up. But they were not really a threat to the British. So it's really at the end of the 19th century, you have a new kind of armed resistance that rises with this group. And the first generation of them were led by two interesting characters. One was Aurobindo Ghosh. Many of you may know him as Sri Aurobindo. And the other was Savarkar. And what they did was create a network of akhadas, which are known as the Anushlan Samiti. And these akhadas were made up of young men mostly, but also occasionally women, not much younger than most of you, about the same age, I would say. They were in the late teens, early 20s, and they decided to take up the attempt to cause for freedom. They also wrote a whole bunch of books. That is the other important thing to remember. So they were influenced by, of course, Hindu revivalism. They were also influenced by Pan-Asianism of the Japanese, by Mazzini, Irish, all kinds of different influences. But this particular round of resistance basically breaks apart. It happens because many of them are arrested, they're sent off to Kala Pani, hanged in some cases, and so on. But then what happens is that one of the disciples of Sri Aurobindo, called Raj Bihari Bose, takes it up. And he then begins to create another network along with a granduncle of mine, incidentally, called Sachindranath Sanyal. And they begin to revive this network of akhadas. In 1912, by the way, Raj Bihari Bose, not far from here, in Chandni Chowk, threw a bomb on Lord Hardinge and nearly killed him. And most amusingly, he then went back to Dehradun where he was working, and then he organized an event where he condemned the bombing in the harshest terms. And they were so pleased with this that when Lord Hardinge 6 months later came back after recovering from the bomb attack, he was the leader of the welcoming committee. Anyway, then the First World War starts. Sachin Sanyal and Raj Bihari Bose then attempt to cause a revolt in the Indian army. And this revolt nearly succeeds just couple of days before the revolt was supposed to take off. The British find out about it. At the last minute, they change all the guards of all the armories. So this great revolt doesn't actually take off, except in Singapore, where they hadn't heard that this had happened, and the troops in Singapore rise in revolt. But this fails. The Germans attempt to supply arms to various revolutionary groups. Some of these revolutionary groups end up fighting in Persia against, guess who? General Dreyer.